I once believed the American dream was built on merit, innovation, and perseverance. But when my breakthrough idea was stolen right inside the familiar walls of our Denver office, I learned the real rules. This world isn't fair, and justice doesn't come by waiting. It only arrives when you know exactly when to strike. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. My patent lawyer taught me it's actually best served with perfect timing and ironclad evidence. My name is Claire Donovan. And at 32, I'd already lived more lives than most people do by retirement, growing up in the Rust Belt suburbs of Youngstown, Ohio, where abandoned steel mills cast long shadows over crumbling houses. I learned early that nobody was going to hand me anything. My father worked double shifts at the warehouse until his back gave out, and my mother cleaned office buildings at night, always coming home with swollen feet and stories about the gleaming tech companies she serviced, places where people my age made more in a month than she did in a year. That's how I ended up here, at NextSphere Labs in downtown Denver, staring at lines of code on 3 monitors while the Rocky Mountains watched through floor-to-ceiling windows. The office was everything my childhood wasn't: exposed brick walls painted pristine white, standing desks that cost more than my first car, and a kitchen stocked with kombucha and organic snacks that nobody from my neighborhood would recognize as food. I'd fought for this spot. Full scholarship to Ohio State, teaching myself to code in the university library while my roommates partied, graduating summa cum laude into a job market that didn't care about my perfect GPA nearly as much as it cared about who I knew, which was nobody. 5 years of grinding through startup hellscapes in Columbus and Pittsburgh, surviving on ramen and determination, until NextSphere finally took a chance on the girl with the wrong zip code but the right algorithms. The thing about being an outsider in tech is that you notice things insiders miss. While my colleagues, mostly guys named Brad or Tyler who'd grown up in Palo Alto or Seattle, built features for people like themselves, I saw gaps. Real problems that real people faced. Like how my mother still kept her bills in a shoebox, terrified of online banking, while predatory lenders circled our neighborhood like vultures. Or how my father's medical debt had compounded into something monstrous because he couldn't navigate the insurance maze. That's where the idea came from. Late nights in my studio apartment in Capitol Hill. I'd work on it, an AI-powered financial optimization app that could analyze personal data patterns and automatically restructure finances for maximum benefit. Not another budgeting app for tech bros, but something my parents could use. Something that could spot predatory interest rates, identify better insurance options, negotiate bills automatically. I called it EquiLife, and it was going to be my ticket to finally belonging somewhere. NextSphere Labs occupied the entire 14th floor of a glass tower that reflected the Colorado sunshine like a beacon. Every morning, I'd badge in at 7 a.m., an hour before most of my colleagues, savoring the quiet time when the office felt like mine alone. The smell of automated espresso machines warming up, the hum of servers in the background, the way morning light painted golden rectangles across the polished concrete floors. Victor Hale usually arrived around 8:30, carrying his $17 green juice and wearing the uniform of successful tech executives, designer jeans, a fitted t-shirt that showed he had a personal trainer, and a smartwatch that tracked every heartbeat of his optimized existence. At 45, he'd already sold 2 companies and joined NextSphere as VP of Product Development with a compensation package that included more stock options than I'd see in a lifetime. He had this way of making you feel seen when it served him. He'd lean against your desk, really listen when you explained a technical problem, nod thoughtfully with those sharp blue eyes focused entirely on you. "Brilliant work, Claire," he'd say, and for a moment, you'd forget that he'd never actually implemented any of your suggestions. The tech world isn't just brutal, it's brutal in specific ways that nobody prepares you for. It's not enough to be smart, you have to be smart in the right accent, with the right references, the right casual mentions of schools and internships that mark you as one of them. I'd learned to code switch, to laugh at their jokes about disrupting industries that had employed my entire family, to nod knowingly when they complained about their ski trips to Aspen being too crowded these days. But late at night, when the office emptied out and it was just me and the glow of my monitors, I'd work on EquiLife. Every line of code was a small rebellion, a quiet insistence that technology could serve people like my parents instead of extracting from them. I'd been building it for 6 months, using my own time, my own resources. But running tests on NextSphere's superior infrastructure during off hours, that was my first mistake, believing that ambition and talent could overcome the unwritten rules of a game I barely understood. The seed of my tragedy was planted on a Thursday evening in March. Denver was experiencing one of those late winter storms that reminded you the Rockies didn't care about your calendar. I'd been at the office for 12 hours straight, debugging a particularly nasty problem in EquiLife's machine learning algorithm. The app had finally reached a breakthrough. It could now predict financial distress patterns 3 months in advance with 94% accuracy. Victor appeared beside my desk around 8 p.m., surprising me. Most executives had fled before the storm hit. But there he was, snow still melting on his shoulders. "Still here, Claire. That's dedication." He pulled up a chair, that expensive cologne of his cutting through the stale office air. "What's keeping you so late?" I should have lied. Should have mentioned the mundane project I was officially assigned to. But exhaustion and pride made me careless. Just a personal project. An AI financial advisor that actually helps working-class people. His eyes sharpened with interest. "Show me." For the next 2 hours, I walked him through EquiLife. The way his face lit up should have been my warning. He asked penetrating questions about the algorithm, the data structures, the API integrations. He understood not just the surface, but the architecture, the elegant solutions I'd crafted to complex problems. "This is exceptional, Claire, revolutionary, actually." He leaned back, fingers steepled. "You know, NextSphere has been looking for our next flagship product, something with real social impact." My heart hammered. This was it, the moment where everything changed. "I want you to prepare a full presentation, architecture documents, code review, market analysis. Keep it between us for now. I'll need to position this right with the board." He stood, placing a hand on my shoulder. "This could be huge for you, for both of us." That night, I barely slept. I spent the next 3 weeks creating the most comprehensive technical documentation of my life. Every function commented, every design decision justified, every potential scaling issue addressed. I built slide decks that told EquiLife's story, from the predatory lenders in my Ohio neighborhood to the algorithm that could save families from financial ruin. Victor scheduled meetings at odd hours, always in empty conference rooms, always off the record. He'd bring coffee and pastries, making each session feel like a conspiracy of innovation. "The board's conservative," he'd say, scrolling through my code on his laptop. "I need to understand every detail to sell them on this. You know how it is. They trust me, not..." He'd trail off. But I heard the unsaid words, "Not someone like you." He had me export the entire codebase to his secure drive. "For safekeeping," he said. "Corporate espionage is real, Claire. We need backups they can't trace to your machine." I gave him everything. Source code, training data, even my personal notes about future features. He absorbed it all with the intensity of a student cramming for finals, asking me to explain every algorithm, every optimization, every clever shortcut I'd discovered. "You need to be careful about intellectual property," he mentioned casually one afternoon. "Anything developed using company resources technically belongs to NextSphere. But don't worry, I'll make sure you're recognized as the lead architect." That's when I made my second mistake. Oh, I've been careful about that. All the core development was done on my personal laptop, on my own time. I've only used the office servers for testing after hours. His expression shifted for just a microsecond, something dark and calculating flashing across his features before the mentorship mask returned. "Smart. Very smart. Though you might want to document that timeline carefully, just in case." The following Monday, he had me walk him through the deployment pipeline one more time. Tuesday, he asked for clarification on the neural network training parameters. Wednesday, he canceled our meeting. Thursday morning, I arrived to find the conference room buzzing with unusual energy. The entire leadership team was gathered, plus several faces I recognized from the board of directors. Victor stood at the front, a projection showing on the wall behind him. It was EquiLife, my EquiLife. But the slides were different, professional, corporate, branded with NextSphere's logo. "I'm thrilled to announce NextSphere's next revolutionary product," Victor said, clicking to the next slide. "An AI-powered financial advisor that democratizes wealth management for everyday Americans." The blood drained from my face. I stood frozen in the doorway as he walked through my architecture, my algorithms, my vision, all presented as his breakthrough innovation. He spoke about growing up understanding financial struggle, about his passion for accessible technology. He even used my phrase, predatory lending patterns, while describing the problem EquiLife solved. Nobody noticed me. I was just another developer, watching the executives celebrate their VP's genius. Victor's eyes met mine once across the room. There was no apology there, no shame, just a slight nod, as if to say, "This is how the game is played." The meeting ended with champagne. Real champagne, not the cheap stuff they brought out for product launches. Victor was getting a dedicated team, a 7-figure budget, and fast-track approval for development. I spent the rest of that day at my desk, staring at my empty screen, my hands shaking too badly to type. The EquiLife repository on my personal laptop felt like evidence of my own stupidity. Every commit message, every timestamp that proved it was mine. All worthless without witnesses, without legal protection, without the power to make anyone care. The full weight of betrayal didn't hit me until the all-hands meeting the following week. Victor stood on the small stage in our main conference area, the Denver skyline glittering behind him like a crown of glass and steel. The entire company had gathered, developers, designers, sales, marketing, all eager to hear about NextSphere's bold new direction. EquiLife represents everything NextSphere stands for, Victor announced, his voice carrying that perfect blend of authority and inspiration that made investors write checks. Innovation that matters, technology that transforms lives, this is our moonshot. He clicked through slides showing projected revenue, market penetration, social impact metrics. My stomach churned with each chart, each figure I recognized from my own research, now stamped with his name. "I'll be personally leading this initiative," he continued. "And I want our best people on it. Sarah from UX, Marcus from Backend, Tyler from DevOps." He listed a dozen names. Mine wasn't among them. "As for the rest of our current projects, we'll be redistributing resources. Claire Donovan will be transitioning to maintain our legacy SMS notification system. We need someone reliable keeping those lights on while we focus on the future." Legacy systems, the corporate equivalent of exile. A year-old project nobody cared about, running on outdated infrastructure, the kind of assignment given to developers they wanted to forget existed. The room erupted in excited chatter about EquiLife. My colleagues congratulated Victor, peppered him with questions about the architecture, my architecture. I sat frozen in my plastic chair, watching my professional future evaporate like morning mist. Sarah, who'd always been friendly, turned to me with something like pity. "Legacy systems aren't that bad. Stable hours, at least." Marcus avoided eye contact entirely. He knew. He had to know. We'd discussed similar concepts months ago, and I'd foolishly shared my excitement about my side project. After the meeting, I found myself standing outside Victor's office, through the glass. I could see him on a call, gesturing animatedly, probably selling my idea to another investor. His assistant, Patricia, gave me a sympathetic look. "He's booked solid today," she said softly. "Maybe try email." I did email. A carefully worded message asking for clarification about my role, about the project we'd discussed. His response came within minutes. "Claire, I understand you might be disappointed about the team selection. Your current skills aren't quite aligned with EquiLife's needs. Focus on the SMS system, its critical infrastructure. We all have our roles to play. VH." The humiliation was complete, but the rage was worse. It burned through me as I sat in my dimmed corner of the office, watching the Equilife team hold spirited brainstorming sessions in the glass-walled conference rooms. They were solving problems I'd already solved, celebrating discoveries I'd made months ago in my apartment. I tried to focus on the SMS system, but every line of code felt like surrender. My commits grew sloppy. My attendance became erratic. HR sent a gentle reminder about maintaining professional standards. The worst part was the gaslighting. In the kitchen, Victor would pat my shoulder patronizingly. "Chin up, Claire. Not everyone can be a visionary. The company needs solid workers too." Other executives started treating me differently. Where once they'd nodded respectfully when I spoke in meetings, now they talked over me. My suggestions were dismissed with barely concealed impatience. I'd gone from rising star to office furniture in a matter of weeks. I started documenting everything obsessively. Screenshots of my original commits, timestamps from my personal laptop, emails where Victor had asked for clarification on various features. But what was the point? He was Victor Hale, successful entrepreneur, respected leader. I was nobody. A developer from Ohio who couldn't even hold on to her own idea. The breaking point came on a rain-soaked Thursday, exactly 1 month after the announcement. I overheard Victor in the elevator talking to a board member on the phone. The algorithm? Oh, that was the easy part. Once you understand the underlying patterns, the solution presents itself. It's really about having the vision to see what others miss. My vision, my patterns, my solution. I left the building without returning to my desk. The rain soaked through my jacket as I walked aimlessly through downtown Denver. Past the homeless camps that lined the Platte River. Past the construction sites building more luxury condos. Past the cannabis shops and craft breweries that had replaced the working-class bars. I ended up at Union Station, watching trains I couldn't afford to board disappear into the storm. My phone buzzed with messages from HR, from my manager, asking where I was. I didn't respond. Instead, I made a different call. My college roommate's sister was a paralegal at a law firm. She'd mentioned once that they specialized in intellectual property. "Do you still have that lawyer's number?" I asked, rain streaming down my face. "The one who handles patent disputes?" "Martha Keller, sure, but Claire, she's expensive, like, really expensive. I need to meet her." "Are you okay? You sound—" "I'm not okay," I admitted, my voice breaking for the first time. "But I'm not giving up either." That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by printouts of code, emails, and documentation. The SMS system notification pinged on my work laptop, some minor error that needed attention. I slammed it shut. Victor thought he'd won. He'd taken my idea, destroyed my reputation, reduced me to nothing. But he'd made one mistake. He'd left me with nothing to lose. Martha Keller's office occupied the corner of a historic building in Lodo. All exposed brick and original hardwood floors that creaked with the weight of 100 years of Denver history. She didn't belong in the glossy high-rises where corporate lawyers played their games. She'd carved out her own territory. And sitting across from her massive oak desk, I understood why tech companies feared her. She was somewhere past 50. With silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and reading glasses that she peered over rather than through. Her walls were lined with framed articles. David versus Goliath. Keller takes down tech giant. The patent defender. Silicon Valley's worst nightmare practices law in Denver. "Coffee?" she offered, already pouring herself a cup from a French press. "It's going to be a long conversation." For 2 hours, I laid out everything. Every document, every timestamp, every piece of evidence I'd frantically assembled. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in handwriting so precise it looked like typography. When I finished, she leaned back, fingers steepled. "You have proof of creation. That's good. You have proof he knew it was yours. That's better. But Victor Hale isn't stupid. He's probably already filed provisional patents, created false documentation trails, maybe even had other developers unknowingly validate his innovation." My heart sank. "So there's nothing we can do." A smile played at the corner of her mouth, not warm, but sharp. like a blade being tested. I didn't say that. I said he isn't stupid. But in my experience, ambitious men like Victor always make one fatal error. They get greedy. She pulled out a legal pad, drawing a timeline. Right now, he's in the honeymoon phase. Everyone loves the idea. The board's excited, investors are circling. He'll want to move fast, capitalize on the momentum. That's when he'll make mistakes. But I can't afford to wait. I can barely afford this meeting. Martha studied me for a long moment. I don't usually do this, but I'll make you a deal. I'll take your case on contingency. I only get paid if we win. In exchange, when we destroy him, I want 30% of whatever we recover. Plus, you give me an exclusive interview for my book about predatory practices in tech. Your book? Oh yes, I'm documenting every case, every stolen idea, every brilliant mind crushed by corporate machinery. Victor Hale will make an excellent chapter. She pushed a contract across the desk. But Claire, understand something. We're not going to fight fair. We're not going to file immediately. We're going to wait. Wait for what? For him to believe he's untouchable. A snake is most vulnerable when it's swallowing its prey. Right now, he's still cautious, still watching you. But when EquiLife launches, when the money starts flowing, when he's standing on stages accepting awards for your work, that's when he won't see us coming. She opened a drawer, pulling out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. This is 20-year-old bourbon. I save it for special occasions, like the beginning of a perfect revenge. The whiskey burned, but not as much as the anger that had been consuming me. What do I do in the meantime? I can't keep working there, seeing him every day. Yes, you can. And you will. Her tone brooked no argument. You'll be the model employee, quiet, defeated, focused on your little SMS project. Let him think he's broken you. Meanwhile, you document everything. Every meeting where EquiLife is discussed, every design decision that mirrors your original work, every lie he tells investors. That could take months. It will take months. Maybe a year. She refilled our glasses. But here's what Victor doesn't understand about patent law. Prior art isn't just about who filed first. It's about who can prove original creation. And if he's built his entire product launch on stolen IP, if investors have poured millions into fraud, well, that's not just a civil matter anymore. That's criminal. The word hung in the air like electricity before a storm. Martha pulled up something on her computer. Victor Hale, 2 previous companies, both had co-founders who mysteriously departed before major acquisitions. Both times, their contributions were minimized, their equity diluted through legal technicalities. She turned the screen toward me. You're not his first victim, Claire, but you're going to be his last. Over the next hour, she outlined the strategy. I would become a ghost in the machine, invisible but omnipresent. Every email would be blind copied to a secure server. Every meeting would be followed by detailed notes, time-stamped and verified. Every iteration of Victor's code would be compared against my original architecture. And Claire, she added as I prepared to leave, start looking for allies in every company. There are people who know the truth but are too scared to speak. Find them. When the time comes, we'll need witnesses. The rain had stopped by the time I left her office. Downtown Denver glowed under the wet streets, reflecting neon and possibility. I stood on the sidewalk, contract in my bag, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not hope exactly. Something harder. Sharper. Purpose. My phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Missed you at the office today. Everything okay? Remember, the team needs that SMS system stable. I typed back, sorry, wasn't feeling well. Will be in tomorrow. SMS system is my priority. Martha was right. He thought he'd won. Thought I was broken. He had no idea that every patronizing smile, every dismissive comment, every moment he stood in front of crowds claiming my work, it was all evidence, all ammunition. You need patience, Martha had said as I left. Revenge isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And the best part? He's going to hand us everything we need to destroy him. Men like Victor always do. Walking back to my apartment, I passed a billboard advertising a tech conference. Victor's face beamed down, alongside text about NextSphere's revolutionary innovation. Enjoy it while it lasts, I whispered to the billboard. The snake doesn't know it yet, but the lawyer is watching, and she's waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The next 6 months were an exercise in controlled fury. Every morning, I'd arrive at NextSphere with a neutral expression, brew my coffee, and settle into my corner desk to work on the SMS system that nobody cared about. To everyone watching, I was the defeated developer who'd learned her place. But I'd become something else entirely, a surveillance machine. Martha had given me specific instructions on evidence gathering. We need what lawyers call a pattern of deceit, she'd explained. One stolen idea might be coincidence, but if we can show systematic theft, deliberate deception, and conspiracy to defraud investors, that's a different story. The Equilife team worked in the glass conference room directly in my sightline. I watched Victor lead meetings, pointing at whiteboards covered with my algorithms, explaining concepts I'd developed during sleepless nights in my apartment. I documented everything, photos taken discreetly with my phone, meeting notes accidentally left on printers that I'd photographed before shredding. The breakthrough came through an unexpected ally. Marcus, the back-end developer on Victor's team, started eating lunch at odd hours, always alone. One day, he sat next to me in the empty cafeteria. I know, he said quietly, not looking at me. The neural network architecture, the data pipeline design. I recognize your code style, Claire. It's like your signature all over it. I kept my expression neutral. Martha's warning echoing. Trust no one until you're certain. Victor had me optimize the code last week, Marcus continued, but I found comments in the repository, timestamps that don't match his story, variable names that are pure Claire Donovan. Who else names functions after Ohio counties? He slid a USB drive across the table, hidden under a napkin. Repository history. Before Victor sanitized it, I thought you should know. Marcus became my inside source. Through him, I learned that Victor was already courting investors for a Series B round, valuing Equilife at $50 million. He'd hired a PR firm to position himself as a visionary founder, complete with a fabricated backstory about developing the idea during a meditation retreat in Sedona. Meanwhile, Martha was building her own network. She had me file a provisional patent for my original work, using documentation from my personal laptop that predated Victor's claims by months. We're not going to sue yet, she explained. We're just establishing prior art. Let him think he's safe. The torture was watching Equilife succeed with my innovations while I debugged legacy code. Victor had implemented my predictive algorithm for identifying predatory loans, but he'd missed subtle improvements I'd planned. When the system flagged false positives, costing NextSphere a major partnership, I had to bite my tongue to keep from explaining the fix I'd designed months ago. Sarah from UX approached me one afternoon, looking uncomfortable. Victor asked me to remove something from the Equilife interface, she said quietly. There was a comment in the CSS that said, CD original implementation. He seemed really agitated about it. Probably just cleanup, I replied casually. But I noted the date and time. Martha called these consciousness of guilt moments, evidence that Victor knew what he'd done was wrong. The most painful discovery came through the company's Slack archives. Marcus helped me access backup channels where Victor had discussed the project with the board. In one message, dated a week before he'd first approached me, he'd written, "Found our next big thing. Young developer, no legal protection, has no idea what she's sitting on. This could be huge for us." I screenshot everything, forwarding it to Martha's secure server. By month 4, Victor had grown careless. Success made him bold. He gave interviews to TechCrunch, claiming he'd been working on Equilife for years in stealth mode. He spoke at conferences about his journey from idea to implementation. Each public lie was another nail in his legal coffin. Perfect, Martha said during one of our monthly meetings. He's creating a public record of fraud. When we reveal the truth, He won't be able to claim misunderstanding or shared development. He's explicitly taking sole credit. She showed me her growing file, now 3 boxes of evidence. We have your original code, time-stamped emails, witness testimonies from Marcus and Sarah, proof of Victor's prior knowledge, and his public claims of sole invention. But we need one more thing. What? The smoking gun. Something that proves not just theft, but intentional conspiracy to defraud. Something that would make criminal prosecutors interested. That came in month 5, through Patricia, Victor's assistant. She was retiring, and on her last day, she stopped by my desk. I scheduled all those secret meetings between you and Victor, she said carefully. I also scheduled his meetings with the patent lawyers, starting 3 days after your first presentation to him. He had me book them under Project Columbus. Same code name he used for Equilife internally. She handed me a folder. My personal copies of his calendar from that period. I thought someone should have them. Inside were emails between Victor and NextSphere's legal team, discussing how to acquire my IP without compensation. One email was particularly damning. If she developed it on company time or equipment, we own it. Find any connection, no matter how tenuous. If we can't find one, create one. Martha actually laughed when she saw it, a harsh sound like glass breaking. He documented conspiracy to commit IP theft, in writing, to lawyers who should have known better. She looked at me with something approaching maternal pride. Claire, we're not just going to win. We're going to destroy him. The final piece fell into place in month 6. Victor announced that Global Tech Ventures would lead a $30 million investment round, valuing Equilife at $200 million. The announcement party was scheduled for the following month in New York, where Victor would sign the papers live on stage at Tech Disrupt Conference. That's our moment, Martha declared. Maximum publicity, maximum humiliation, maximum legal exposure. She pulled out a timeline, marking the date with a red X. He's swallowing the prey whole, just like I predicted. Time to make him choke on it. The Javits Center in New York hummed with the energy of 5,000 tech enthusiasts, investors, and media personnel. Tech Disrupt's main stage was set for the Investment of the Year ceremony, Victor's crowning moment. I stood in the back of the auditorium, Martha beside me, watching him rehearse his presentation one final time. He looked perfect. Custom suit, fresh haircut, that confident smile that had fooled so many. The Global Tech Ventures team sat in the front row, contracts ready, prepared to wire $30 million the moment signatures hit paper. Federal marshals are in position, Martha whispered. The moment he signs those documents, he's committed wire fraud across state lines. That's 20 years federal time. My phone buzzed. Marcus. He's nervous. Keeps checking his phone. Something's spooking him. Martha smiled coldly. That would be the cease and desist letter that just hit NextSphere's legal department, timed perfectly so they can't reach him before he goes on stage. The lights dimmed. The host's voice boomed. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for. Please welcome Victor Hale, visionary founder of Equilife. The crowd erupted. Victor strode onto stage, waving like a politician, his face projected on massive screens. He launched into his presentation, my architecture, my algorithms, my vision for democratizing financial wellness, all wrapped in his lies. Equilife represents 18 months of intensive development, he declared. Every line of code, every algorithm, born from my personal mission to revolutionize finance. That was Martha's cue. She stood up, her voice cutting through the applause. Mr. Hale, I represent Claire Donovan, the actual creator of Equilife. We have documentation proving systematic intellectual property theft and investment fraud. The auditorium went silent. Every head turned. Victor's face on the big screen showed the exact moment he recognized me standing next to Martha. This is ridiculous, he stammered into the microphone. Security? Security won't help you, Martha continued, walking down the aisle toward the stage. But these federal marshals might have questions about the fraudulent representations you've made to Global Tech Ventures. 2 marshals appeared at the stage stairs. The global tech executives were on their feet, phones out, their legal team huddling frantically. Martha reached the stage, her heels clicking against the floor in the dead silence. "We have time-stamped code repositories proving Ms. Donovan created EquiLife months before you claimed to have started development. We have emails where you conspired to steal her work. We have witnesses who will testify to your pattern of deception." She turned to the global tech team. "Gentlemen, you're about to invest $30 million in stolen property. I'd reconsider." Victor tried to maintain composure, but sweat beaded on his forehead under the hot stage lights. "These are baseless accusations. I have patents. Provisional patents filed after Ms. Donovan's documented creation date." Martha interrupted. She pulled out her phone, projecting an email onto the main screen. Victor's own words. "If she developed it on company time or equipment, we own it. Find any connection, no matter how tenuous. If we can't find one, create one." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out, everyone recording. Within seconds, EquiLife theft was trending. Victor's legs seemed to buckle. He gripped the podium. I need to consult with my lawyers." "They're a bit busy," Martha said. "NextSphere's board called an emergency meeting 15 minutes ago. I believe the phrase catastrophic legal exposure was mentioned." I stepped forward then, walking down that same aisle I'd imagined walking so many times. But in my fantasies, it had been to accept recognition for my work. This was different. Better. "Hello, Victor," I said, my voice carrying through the wireless mic Martha handed me. "Remember that girl from Ohio you thought was nobody? The one whose dreams you could steal because she didn't matter?" I turned to the audience, seeing reporters leaning forward, cameras focused. "I created EquiLife to help families like mine avoid predatory lending. Victor Hale stole it to make himself rich. But he made one mistake. He underestimated what happens when someone with nothing to lose decides to fight back." The global tech CEO stood up. "This deal is terminated pending investigation." His team filed out, leaving Victor alone on stage with empty contracts. Martha delivered the final blow. "Mr. Hale, you're being served with a federal lawsuit for patent infringement, theft of trade secrets, and investment fraud. The FBI's white-collar crime division would also like a word about those investor presentations." A marshal approached Victor with papers. The man who'd stood so proud moments before looked small, deflated, his empire crumbling on live stream to thousands of viewers. But the true poetry came from an unexpected source. The conference organizer took the mic. "Due to these developments, Tech Disrupt is proud to offer Claire Donovan the main stage to present the real story of EquiLife." I looked at Martha, who nodded with that sharp smile. "You have 20 minutes before the federal prosecutors want your statement. Make them count." I took the stage, my stage, finally, and pulled up my original presentation, the one I'd created in my studio apartment with dreams of changing the world. The audience leaned in, hungry for truth after witnessing the spectacular lie. "My name is Claire Donovan," I began, my voice steady now. "I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, where predatory lenders destroyed my community. This is the real story of EquiLife and how it's going to help millions of families escape financial predation." As I spoke, I saw Victor being escorted out by federal marshals. He looked back once, our eyes meeting across the chaotic auditorium. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The revenge wasn't in his humiliation. It was in reclaiming my voice, my work, my future. Everything he'd tried to steal, returned in front of the entire tech world. Martha had been right. We'd waited for the perfect moment to strike. And when we did, we didn't just win. We destroyed him completely. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Tech journalists occupied every available seat, their laptops creating a symphony of clicking keys. The gallery overflowed with NextSphere employees, some supporting me, others just there to witness Victor's fall. CNN had called it the trial of Silicon Valley's shadow economy, how stolen ideas became billion-dollar empires. Martha had assembled a legal team that looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate thriller. She'd brought in David Kim, a former federal prosecutor who specialized in intellectual property crimes, and Rebecca Torres, who'd successfully taken down 3 Fortune 500 executives for fraud. Victor sat at the defendant's table, diminished. His $2,000 suit couldn't hide the hollow look in his eyes. The company had suspended him without pay, his stock options frozen, his reputation in ruins. The preliminary criminal charges alone had made him radioactive in the tech world. "Your Honor," Martha began, her voice filling the courtroom, "we will demonstrate through irrefutable evidence that Victor Hale deliberately, systematically, and maliciously stole Ms. Donovan's intellectual property, defrauded investors of millions, and conspired to destroy her career when she was his only obstacle." The prosecution was surgical. Email after email displayed on the courtroom screens. Victor's own words condemning him. "She has no legal protection. Find any way to claim ownership. Wendy, if she resists, bury her in the SMS project until she quits." Marcus testified first, explaining how he'd recognized my coding patterns, my unique optimization methods that Victor couldn't have replicated. "It would be like forging someone's handwriting," he said. "You might get close, but those who know the original can always tell." Sarah from UX followed, describing Victor's paranoid demands to scrub any trace of my initials from the codebase. Patricia, his former assistant, delivered the killing blow with her meticulous calendar records showing Victor meeting with patent lawyers immediately after stealing my work. But the moment that broke the case wide open came from an unexpected source. Global Tech's forensic accountant had discovered something during their due diligence review after the conference disaster. Mr. Hale created false documentation dating back 18 months, the accountant testified, but he made an error. Several documents reference API protocols that didn't exist until 6 months ago. It's chronologically impossible for him to have developed what he claims when he claims. Victor's lawyer tried damage control, arguing about parallel development and inevitable discovery. But Martha destroyed each argument with timestamps, commit histories, and my detailed development journals that predated every claim Victor made. On day 3, I took the stand. Martha had coached me to remain calm, factual, emotional, but controlled. I told my story, growing up in Ohio, watching predatory lenders destroy families, developing Equilife to fight back. I explained every technical detail, every algorithm, every breakthrough that happened in my tiny apartment while Victor was drinking $17 smoothies. "How did you feel when Victor announced Equilife as his creation?" Martha asked. "Like I'd been erased," I said, looking directly at him. "Not just my work stolen, but my existence denied. He took my solution to help millions of families and turned it into his personal lottery ticket." Victor's cross-examination was brutal. His lawyer attacked my credentials, my background, suggesting someone from my limited circumstances couldn't have developed something so sophisticated. Each insulting question only made the jury lean more in my direction. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. The forewoman stood, her voice clear. "We find in favor of the plaintiff on all counts: intellectual property theft, fraud, conspiracy to defraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress." The damages number made the courtroom gasp: $42 million. Every penny Victor had made or would have made from Equilife, plus punitive damages for the deliberate nature of his theft. But the criminal trial was where true justice lived. The federal prosecutor, emboldened by the civil verdict, charged Victor with wire fraud, conspiracy, and making false statements to investors. Each count carried serious prison time. I watched him during the criminal proceedings, this man who'd thought he could steal dreams like picking pockets. His confident exterior had cracked completely. When the prosecutor played the recording of him at Tech Disrupt, claiming sole creation of Equilife, Victor actually flinched. The criminal verdict was guilty on all counts. The judge, a stern woman who'd seen enough corporate criminals, didn't mince words. "Mr. Hale, you represent the worst of what the tech industry can become. You had every advantage: education, connections, capital. Yet you chose to steal from someone who had only their talent and determination. 7 years federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. The courtroom erupted. Victor's legal team immediately mentioned appeals, but everyone knew it was over. The evidence was too overwhelming, the fraud too blatant, the public disgust too complete. As marshals prepared to take Victor into custody, he looked at me one last time. No apology, no recognition of what he'd done. Just the blank stare of someone who couldn't understand how the person he'd dismissed as nobody had brought down his entire world. Martha stood beside me as we watched him disappear into federal custody. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Like justice," I said. "Like every late-night coding, every moment of humiliation, every time he made me feel worthless, it all led to this moment where the truth won." The media surrounded us outside the courthouse, cameras flashing, questions flying. "Claire, what's next for Equilife?" a reporter shouted. I smiled, thinking of the genuine investors who'd already reached out, offering to fund Equilife properly, with me as founder and CEO. "We're going to help millions of families avoid predatory lending. The real work starts now." "Any words for Victor Hale?" another asked. I considered it, then shook my head. "He's irrelevant now. This was never really about him. It was about protecting innovation, defending creators, and proving that justice doesn't care about your zip code or your connections." Martha added with her signature sharp smile. "Though I will note for any other executives thinking of stealing from their employees, I'm not retired yet." The judge's gavel came down with finality that echoed through the federal courtroom. 7 years. Victor Hale, the man who'd stood on 100 stages accepting applause for my work, would spend the next 7 years in federal prison. As the marshals clicked handcuffs around his wrists, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not joy, but a strange emptiness. Martha noticed my expression as we gathered our files. "It's normal," she said quietly. "When you've focused on justice for so long, achieving it can feel anticlimactic." But she was wrong. It wasn't anticlimactic, it was transformative. Outside the courthouse, the February air bit sharp and clean. Reporters thrust microphones forward, but I walked past them. There would be time for interviews later, book deals, speaking engagements. Tech companies were already calling, offering me positions I couldn't have dreamed of a year ago. But right now, I needed to breathe. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother in Ohio. "Saw the news. Your father would have been so proud. Come home when you can." 3 months later, Equilife launched properly, not as NextSphere's product, but as Donovan Technologies' flagship application. The investors who'd fled from Victor lined up to fund us. We raised $50 million in Series A. But more importantly, we stayed true to the original vision. Within 6 months, we'd helped identify and prevent over $10 million in predatory loans, saved families from 12,000 potentially bankrupting financial products, and partnered with credit unions to offer fair alternatives. Marcus joined as CTOs. Sarah led our UX team. Even Patricia came out of retirement to run operations. NextSphere, meanwhile, collapsed under the weight of lawsuits and scandal. Their board dissolved the company, its assets sold off piece by piece. I kept one memento from those dark months, a screenshot of Victor's email saying I wasn't visionary enough for the Equilife team. I framed it, hanging it in my new office where I could see it every morning. Not as motivation for revenge, that chapter was closed, but as a reminder that those who try to diminish us often reveal their own limitations. Martha and I met for coffee on the 1-year anniversary of the trial. She just finished her book chapter about our case, titled The Perfect Strike: How Patience Destroyed a Corporate Predator. "Any regrets?" she asked, stirring her espresso. "One," I admitted. I wish I'd trusted myself sooner. The moment Victor asked to see my code, something felt wrong. But I ignored my instincts because I wanted so badly to belong. "That's not a regret," Martha corrected. "That's wisdom earned, and you've paid it forward." She was right. We'd established the Donovan Foundation, offering free legal support to developers whose work was stolen by their employers. In our first year, We'd helped expose 17 cases of IP theft, recovering millions in stolen innovations. The last time I saw Victor was in a documentary about white-collar crime in Silicon Valley. He was interviewed from federal prison, his orange jumpsuit a far cry from his designer suits. The interviewer asked if he had any remorse. "I was playing by the rules of the industry," he said, still unable to accept responsibility. Claire Donovan just played them better. Even then, he didn't understand. I hadn't played his game at all. I'd refused to accept that exploitation was inevitable, that the powerful could take what they wanted from those they deemed powerless. With Martha's help, I'd proven that justice might move slowly. But when it strikes completely. Standing in my office now, looking out at the Denver skyline where I'd once felt so small, I thought about that girl from Youngstown who'd come here with nothing but code and dreams. Victor had tried to steal both. Instead, he'd created something he never intended. A fighter who understood that revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about reclaiming your power so completely that they become footnotes in your success story. Martha had said it best during her closing argument. This isn't just about one stolen application or one corrupt executive. It's about proving that in America, innovation belongs to innovators, not to those who would steal it. It's about ensuring that brilliance isn't determined by zip code or connections, but by dedication and talent. The notification on my phone showed Equilife had just passed 10 million users. Each one a family protected from the predatory practices I'd witnessed growing up. That was the real revenge, not Victor's imprisonment, but the fact that my vision survived his attempt to steal it and grew into something larger than either of us had imagined. I picked up the phone to call my mother. It was time to go home to Ohio, to show them that one of their own had made it, not by playing by the Valley's rules, but by refusing to let those rules define what was possible. Victor was right about one thing. There had been a perfect strike, but it wasn't mine or Martha's. It was his, the moment he decided to steal from someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. That was the moment he lost everything. Thank you so much for listening to this story of justice and perseverance. I'm curious to know where you're listening from. Are you commuting to work, relaxing at home, or perhaps taking a break from your own office battles? Please share in the comments below where in the world you're tuning in from, and let me know what you thought about Claire's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of triumph over corporate injustice, and share your own thoughts about standing up to workplace bullies. Your story might inspire someone else to fight for what's rightfully theirs.